Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a very wise king. The king was beloved by his people because he always delivered what he promised and kept his word. One day, a man from the neighboring kingdom came to this king seeking asylum. He said that he had committed an offense in his own kingdom and was afraid to return home because he would be put to death. The king received him warmly and gave him shelter in his palace. He also offered him a beautiful mansion, servants, and all the facilities he could desire. However, one night the king heard some unusual sounds coming from the guest's mansion. He went to investigate and saw this man with a rope around his neck hanging upside down from the ceiling fan. Immediately, the guards rushed in, cut the rope and brought the man down. When the king asked why he had tried to hang himself, the man replied, "Your Majesty, when I came to your kingdom, I told you that I had committed a crime in my own country and that I was afraid to go back because they would kill me. But after spending a few days here, I realized that running away from my problems did not make sense. So I wanted to end my life. Now it doesn't matter if they kill me, because I don't want to live anymore." The king was moved by the man's words and decided to help him. He took him to his chamber and laid him on his bed. Then he covered him with a blanket and left him alone for a while. After about half an hour, the king returned and asked, "Do you feel better now?" To which the man replied, "Yes, Your Majesty, I feel much better now. You have saved my life twice, Your Majesty. First, when I tried to end my life, you saved me. And second, by giving me hope, you have saved my life again." The king smiled and said, "I am glad you are feeling better. But tell me, what offense did you commit in your own kingdom that they wanted to kill you?" The man hesitated, but seeing the king's kind eyes, he finally spoke. "Your Majesty, I am the king's younger brother. Actually, I was jealous of my elder brother, so I poisoned him. That's why I ran away from my kingdom, fearing that they would punish me severely for murdering my king." The king was shocked to hear this and asked, "So why did you confess your crime to me? Why didn't you keep quiet and live in my kingdom by hiding your identity?" The man looked down in shame and said, "I know that my crime is unforgivable, but I couldn't keep living like that. Your Majesty, I could never be happy knowing that my king, my elder brother, died because of me. So I wanted to confess my crime and atone for my sins." The king nodded his head and said, "I understand you want to confess your crime, but tell me, how can you atone for murdering your own king? Nothing can bring him back to life. Even if you live for 100 years, you can never make up for this loss." The man remained silent for a moment. Then he said, "If there is nothing I can do to atone for my crime, then I don't deserve to live, Your Majesty. Please forgive me and let me die." The king thought for a moment. He knew that this man had confessed his crime out of remorse, not because he wanted to boast or gain something. Also, he had tried to take his own life, which showed that he regretted his actions. However, killing a king was a very serious crime, and no one could go unpunished for that. Then the king got an idea. He called the guards and said, "Take this man to the palace square in front of the entire court and all the people and ask him to dig a big hole. He will use this shovel to dig his own grave, then put him inside and bury him alive." Everyone was shocked. They couldn't believe that the king would order such a cruel punishment. The man, too, was very frightened. He fell to his knees and begged for mercy, saying, "Your Majesty, I have already lost my family and my kingdom. If you also take my life, then I will have nothing left to live for. Please show mercy on me and forgive me." The king looked at him and said, "You are right. You have already suffered a lot. So I am not going to take your life. Instead, I am going to give you another chance to atone for your sins. I am going to bury you alive in the palace premises, so that everyone who enters the palace remembers your crime and repents. This way, you will also suffer for the rest of your life, as a reminder of your crime. "Do you accept this punishment?" The man said, "Thank you, Your Majesty. I accept this punishment. I deserve it." The king then turned to the crowd and announced, "People, from today onwards, whenever you enter the palace and see this man lying in the ground, remember that he murdered his own king out of jealousy, and also remember that no matter how powerful and influential you are, never commit such heinous acts. Otherwise, you will end up suffering like this man." After that, the king ordered the guards to bury the man in the ground, leaving only his head above it. Now, every morning when the sun rose, the king used to send fresh flowers to this man, along with water and bread. Every guard and servant in the kingdom was instructed to bring a different flower each day, so that they would remember this man's plight and not bring the same flower again. In this way, the king not only punished this man for his crime, but also made sure that everyone in the kingdom knew about it. This became a lesson for everyone. They understood that no matter how powerful or influential a person is, they should never commit evil. As for the man who was buried alive, he lived for many more years, but he spent those years in regret, thinking about how he had betrayed his own brother and ended up destroying his own life. One day, many years later, the king summoned the royal gardener to him. "Gardener, every day you bring me different types of flowers from the garden to place on the man buried in the palace grounds. Is it still the same?" "Yes, Your Majesty," replied the gardener, "but now there are many different types of colorful flowers growing over there. It looks like a beautiful flower bed." The king was very pleased to hear this. He said, "You have done a good job. Not only have you taken good care of the flowers, but you have also made sure that everyone remembers their purpose." Then the king went to the window and looked out at the It was indeed a beautiful sight. Many kinds of colorful flowers were blooming there, and their fragrance must have spread throughout the palace. After a while, the king called the head guard and asked, "Head guard, go to the palace square and see how the person who killed the king is doing. Is he still alive?" The head guard bowed his head and said, "Your Majesty, when I went to check on him this morning, I found that he was dead. It seems he died in his sleep." The king was a little sad to hear this. On the one hand, he was happy that this man had died peacefully, but on the other hand, he felt sorry for him because he had to live the rest of his life in such a terrible state. The king ordered the guards to dig up the body and bury it properly in the ground, along with a coffin. As the guards were carrying the coffin, one of them stumbled and the lid of the coffin flew open. The king stopped and asked them to lift the coffin again and close it properly this time. But when the guards tried to close the lid, they couldn't. It was stuck and wouldn't shut properly. The king went closer and saw that the man's right hand was sticking out of the coffin, holding a flower in his hand. It was a beautiful white lotus flower. The king asked the head guard to remove the flower from the dead man's hand and closed the coffin. Then he ordered the guards to bury the coffin deep in the ground and cover it with soil. After that, he called the royal gardener and asked him to plant a white lotus in the exact spot where the man was buried. The gardener bowed his head and said, "Your Majesty, why did you order us to plant a lotus flower there? Lotus flowers only grow in ponds or water." The king looked at the gardener and said, "Lotus flowers can only grow in water, but this flower will grow here. Just watch." And indeed, after a few days, a beautiful white lotus flower started blooming in the middle of the flower bed where the man was buried. It seemed as if the man's soul had become one with the flower. From then on, whenever the king saw that lotus flower, he remembered the man who had accepted his punishment without complaining. He also realized that no matter how big a sinner a person may be, they still deserve to be treated humanely. That's all for today. Please subscribe and comment below with the story you want to hear next. Thank you.